It's a Monday of multiple celebrations. Yesterday was Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers around the world. And thank you for constantly showing up for yourselves and your families and being the best, regardless of the challenges you have to deal with. And also to all our viewers, Eid Mubarak, we say thank you. Congratulations from wherever you're watching. It's been a long month of fasting. Now you can let down your hair and eat all that you've missed out on. Hopefully, you don't undo what you did during the fast. You're welcome to Breakfast Central. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Benga Abura. Welcome to Breakfast Central on a Monday, the best place and the right place to start your week. We have quite a lot in store for you today. It's been it was quite an eventful weekend. Nigerians just woke up and the price of petrol changed for the worse. Yes, it got higher. Nigerians are paying more. It's about 9:30.
But we're not surprised, are we?
Yeah.
Because last week when we talked about petrol here, we had, forgotten his name now, join us on the show to talk about the drama between Dangote, the Naira for crude deal, what the implications of it might be, how the federal government needs to step in quickly or else. Thank you very much, Kadike. And he said people should not panic buy. But thankfully, there hasn't been scarcity, there hasn't been shortage of supply. From what I've seen, or from my own side of the divide, I don't know if other people have the same story, but I don't think that we're surprised to see the price increase.
I think Nigerians just want to have that product availability. And again, it's a public holiday for those of you that don't know. It's on days like this that I begin to question my career choice, but it's part of the job. It's the sacrifice we have to make. Essential services.
Journalists never get a break.
Journalists, firemen, policemen, doctors. Yeah, we're very special at Nigeria.
I think the only time that you actually may have appreciated being a journalist a few years back is unfortunately during the lockdown, where you had the freedom to be able to move around because you're essential services. So you could still go and have some sort of a relatively...
So I appreciate a journalist today. If you see us walking on the street, just squeeze
a
little bit of $10,000 inside our
No, let's use one that has some in pound sterling.
Oh, yes.
All right, so much to talk about here this morning. But we're starting off with River State, where it does seem like there's another layer of stories to explore.
River State again?
Yes, again. I mean, we see it almost every day. Rivers, just like rivers keep flowing, you can never touch the same spot in the river twice. That's how in River State.
The poet is awake.
You keep seeing different stories every day. The ex-head of service in River State was declared sort of missing by his wife. First of all, because he had granted a press release that his wife had condemned, saying that her husband certainly did not see all of that, and that he did say that under pressure. Now, he of course, it was in Abuja where he granted this release, and she said, according to her own testimony, that when he landed, he let her know that he had arrived. But then she was surprised to see what he had said on television, stating that the husband leaving, even though he said his resignation from head of service was because of his conscience, not really because he was suspended. But I mean, it just feels like there's a lot. She raised the alarm over his whereabouts, saying that he was in danger, even calling the suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara, asking for help. And Governor Siminalayi Fubara was asking, after everything that I did for you and your family, why did you then turn around to do this? But then he's also given another account stating that he was not under duress and that he's safe and he's sound. But let's take a look at this video.
Is that Governor?
Yes.
If I'm this way, my husband is in trouble. Where could I help you?
What happened?
People should help you. He went to Abuja this morning. I remember he said his friend Ogiri from Abuja called him. My husband is in trouble. I can't get this so. I can't get this so. My husband is in trouble. My husband is in trouble. All his friends are switched off. People should help me. My husband is in trouble.
No, madam, I don't know. I saw something this evening that they granted media this thing. So I'm even surprised that.
He's in trouble. He's in trouble. I don't know, but he's in hospital. They have killed him. I don't know if he's alive. Why could I help me? Why could I help me? Why could I help me? Why could I help me?
All right. Okay. No problem. No. It's okay. You're sure you're not aware of this his action?
I don't know. He told me in the morning That his friend, I remember. He said so.
No, you know what I'm asking? You know what I'm asking? At least there's nothing that happens that he doesn't share with you. Where have I offended him? And where would he cook this level of lies against me? Where have I offended you people? After everything I've done for you people?
He's in trouble. He's in trouble. So please help me. I don't know how to find him.
Good evening, and I say good morning, gentlemen of the press. I'm back for you this evening. My name is George Nwaeke. I'm in Transcorp, Abuja. I came in here this morning from Port Harcourt to meet with security agencies to report myself and to report the things that are happening in the state that are making me to feel sick. Actually, I was head of service until Monday, 24th, and I resigned because of things that are happening. So, after the press interview I granted, I just saw a video of my wife, trending, where they went to hold her and they fed her with all kinds of fallacies. They told her I'd been kidnapped. I want to clear this. I am not kidnapped. I'm in Abuja. This is Transport Hotel, where I'm lodging. And they told her that I was kidnapped and she's crying, and they wrote a script for her to say all sorts of things. I want to put this straight. I am the head of service, and I'm on oath. My wife does not know the things that happen in my office. I don't discuss anything about office to her. It's only my domestic or social matters that we discuss. So that script they wrote for her is not and void. So I want to clear the air that I am safe, I'm fine, I'm in Abuja. By tomorrow morning, I intend to go to the security agencies to report myself. So my coming to Abuja was based on the fact that Abuja is where all the headquarters of security agencies are housed. So I came here and I think I'm safe here to make this report here, so they can investigate. And I'm saying that I'm on oath. If I allow any of those things, they will take me up. But I'm reporting exactly what I know and nothing but that. And I said everything from my mind. And I want to reassure you that everything I said is true. Thank you, and God bless you.
And that right there is done.
You don't even know where to start from. You don't know which version to believe. I mean, the moral of the story here is don't let politics come in between your marriage and your relationship, because you have it, the husband is saying something, the wife is saying something else, and it's just getting so messy in Rivers State, as we've seen in the last couple of months. But these allegations are very serious allegations. I mean, if you're going to allege that the governor has a hand to do with militants blowing up pipelines, then you should show evidence. And the governor in that video was clearly upset with him that where are all these allegations coming from?
Man, the allegations were so strong. There were a lot of them. There were the allegations of the governor being directly involved in the burning down of the assembly quarters to prevent his impeachment, and that Edison Ehie was involved, and that they saw monies being passed to Edison Ehie to sponsor this. Edison Ehie, on the other hand, has come out to speak about it. Edison Ehie says that Mr. George Nwaeke is not a content person. He granted an interview where he said that Mr. George Nwaeke is not a content person, and that there were some shady things that had happened. He gave a timeline of events that had occurred. He first said that on the day that Mr. Nwaeke had resigned, that the very next day he started sending messages to him, Edison Ehie, saying that he should bail him out, that they shouldn't throw him to the curb now that he's resigned. He doesn't have money to get an apartment. He has to move out of the assembly quarters. There's so many allegations. I think it's even beyond marriage. I think it's politics at play. There's a bigger picture. We're not quite seeing what the bigger picture is. And it's a conversation that we'll explore when we look at our top stories. But there's also the angle of people claiming that he actually did read that statement under duress. There's a video circulating where indigents of Rivers State have interpreted that there was a voice behind, in the background, telling him to read what was written on the script verbatim. So there are just many angles to look at the conversation from. He said that the only reason he didn't resign a day after the demolition or a day after the assembly complex was blown up was that he was afraid of resigning under a sitting governor. He knows the power of a sitting governor. The governor knew too much. So there are many layers, so many threads that we really need to untie. And I'm hoping that later in the conversation this morning, we're going to unpack what the statements are, what the meaning is. I mean, his wife really just cried foul, coming on national TV to complain and just ask
Raise a serious
Nigerians to
alarm.
help our
Yeah.
husband. But yeah, we'll unpack that much later.
Exactly, and I'm sure that's not the end of it. But moving from Port Harcourt, Rivers State, to neighboring Bayelsa State. Bayelsa Governor Diri has warned the FCT minister not to come to Bayelsa State. He says this is not Rivers State. Let's take a listen to the video and then we'll give you the context.
Right. So there's meant to be some sort of a mega rally that is meant to come to Bayelsa State, and in the rally that is supposed to happen, of course, he has warned. He said, "Look, do not come. Bayelsa State is not Rivers State." But let's take a look at this video.
Where we have threats from our sister states, our neighboring state of Rivers State. The political crisis there is threatening us, and we will not allow what is happening in their state to come into Bayelsa State. And if your son or daughter is misbehaving, please call him to order. We have had in our party a renegade who has decided to form a parallel PDP in Bayelsa State, working with former Governor Nwaeke in Rivers State. And the party in our state has suspended Judge Turner for going to take over the office of one of our sons. And so the party has suspended him, and so Judge Turner is not for now a member of our party in Bayelsa State. He could be a member in Rivers State, not in Bayelsa State. And so the royal fathers of Okpebholo, elders of Fubara, may have to call that young man to order. If you don't call him to order, he is going to disrupt this state. Just recently, we all saw a post in Facebook saying that they want to receive Nwaeke in Bayelsa, in Yenagoa. They told me around about. I have directed the security to be on alert. I have directed every youth to be on alert. And I bring that to you to also be on alert. This is not Rivers State. This is Bayelsa State. The cradle of every Idoma.
Right.
Strong words there from Governor Diri.
Yeah, Governor Diri is definitely not pleased by that. Now, just a brief context, like Benga had mentioned, this rally is meant to take place, it hasn't happened yet. It's meant to take place on the 12th of April. Now, the pro-rally supporters, Judge Turner, have said that what they're looking for, that it's not about destabilizing the Ijaw nation or destabilizing Bayelsa State, that what they're looking at is basically some sort of a rally to show support for President Bola Tinubu as well as FCT Minister Nwaeke. Now, why this might be a cause for concern is because if you go back to Rivers State, now we have the Ijaw people situated in Bayelsa, we have the Ijaw people in Rivers State as well, and even in the tensions with former Governor Nwaeke and Governor Siminalayi Fubara, you could see that there have been certain ethnic colorisms that have been brought up in the conversations about the destabilization of Rivers State and the role of the Ijaw people. We've seen how the Ijaw people have accused former governor and the FCT minister of his using denigrating words about the Ijaw people. You know, they said that they didn't react kindly to him saying, you know, they're the minorities, the Ijaw and Rivers are minorities. So there's been just a lot of ethnic coloration in that drama, and they're wondering why exactly do you need to do a pro-Nwaeke and pro-Tinubu rally in Bayelsa State to just further
understand it. I mean, after reading the room and knowing the sort of tensions and knowing that this person is not really welcome here, going by his track record. But on the flip side of things, you say, I mean, as a minister of the Federal Republic, every Nigerian citizen is free to go anywhere they want to within the borders of the Federation. So he has every right to. So we watch and wait. April 12th, I believe.
They said they will go ahead and proceed, regardless of what the governor says. But the governor is the chief security officer of the state. I think that he can be able to see and say, you know, it's important that we try to avoid these areas or these areas of conversations, because this might, in a manner, incite the people in my state. Even though we also recognize the right to freedom of expression. So April 12th is around the corner, is in 12 days' time. I guess we'll stick around and find out. Meanwhile, the FCT minister, whom the pro-Wike supporters are trying to show a rally of support for in Bayelsa State, has come out to say that President Bola Tinubu is pleased with his work as FCT minister. Let's take a listen.
If your boss in the public says that you are doing well, that of course is an encouragement for you to continue doing the job that you've been assigned. And for us, we're happy to be identified in this administration, and we'll continue to do what Abuja people will be happy. So I'm happy each time Mr. President talks about us and tries to say the little we have done. That means that he's watching and we will not disappoint him.
And I started looking at the opening up of the rural areas, of abandoned projects, and the residents of the vast residents that has been abandoned for years came alive. The health centers are being rehabilitated. The health facilities of the residents of the FCT and reserves are being upgraded. Our children's schools are being rehabilitated, the rebuild, refurbished. Thank you. We're looking at being able to open our mouths so we will celebrate, if not because of the progressive ideas that we want to play.
So there you have it. He's got a pass mark from his principal, the President Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, talking about how he's performed. I didn't love him or hate him. FCT Minister, former Governor Nwaeke has been described as a performer. His track record, his nickname was Mr. Project when he was Governor of Rivers State, and he's continued in that line, commissioning projects here or there. The only grouse most people have is the role he plays in politics. He's more of a divisive figure because he's still a member of the PDP.
Yeah, not just the role he plays in politics in Rivers State, but also even the judges' quarters. You know, many have argued that he had no business doing that because it's tainted with some sort of coloration and potential to maybe influence, you know, and that's because of his comments, the government and those in charge of power. There's a lot of distrust there. But yes, I think the good news you can pick from there is the fact that regardless of the rumors of stroke against the FCT Minister Nwaeke, you can see that he's well, he's fine, and he paid a courtesy Eid visit to the president. So he's well, and that's something to be thankful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's share with you our top stories this morning on Breakfast Central, just to let you know that you can be a part of the conversation on X at News Central TV, and that at some point we open the phone lines where you can call in and share your thoughts. But now let's take our top story. Ex-Rivers head of service accuses Governor Fubara of assembly bombing and of theft. And away from that, we look at police arrest 14 suspects over 16 hunters' death in Edo State. Really, really gruesome murder. The videos were quite distasteful, heartbreaking as well. House of Reps passed 110 bills in 72 hours. They are working. The Muslims call for national unity and tolerance even as we celebrate the Eid. And the newspaper front pages will be brought to you. We'll open the phone lines and then give you an opportunity to call in. For all these and more, stick with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's been an eventful week in Nigeria's House of Representatives with the passage of 113 constitutional amendment bills in just 72 hours. The amendments cover a wide range of issues including devolution of power, electoral and judicial reforms, legislative adjustments, inclusive governance, and state and local government creation. However, While the House appears determined to push for key reforms, the sheer volume of legislation passed within such a short period, alongside the reversal of two key bills just a day after their passage, has raised concerns about their implications, urgency, and horse trading behind the scenes. News Central's correspondent Edo Joseph takes a closer look.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to completely eliminate the discrimination against women in the nationality law by allowing for wives to be able to pass on their nationality to their foreign husbands and for related matters. Second reading.
The numbers are staggering. 110 constitutional amendment bills passing the second reading in a single week, a pace rarely seen in Nigeria's legislative history.
The ayes have it.
By comparison, constitutional amendments in previous years have moved at a much slower pace, often taking months or even years to gain traction.
If you're a draft person, you will know the rules in terms of the number of alterations or amendments to a legislation, to an act or the Constitution that you will propose that will require a repeal. When you have about 50% or more, a particular act that is seeking to be amended ought to be repealed. So the number of constitutional amendments being proposed is another evidence that this Constitution has been overworked and reworked. And it is time to start looking at how to make the Constitution really people's constitution.
Lawmakers argue that the speech reflects a commitment to closing long-standing constitutional gaps. But some analysts worry that due diligence and thorough deliberation may have taken a backseat to expediency.
Even members of the National Assembly who are in the opposition have appeared to be captured already. You know, the reality is that 3 days for 110 amendments, that is shocking.
The committee led by the Deputy Speaker have done an extensive job, extensive consultation, several workshops and seminars and meetings. That is the only aspect that will make people like us who are professionals in that space admit that an assembly can pass 100 and something bills in just a week.
One of the most controversial developments came when the House rescinded two key bills just a day after their passage. One seeking to remove constitutional immunity for the vice presidents, governors and their deputies, and another proposing death penalty for certain crimes. While the House defended the reversal as a move to allow more input from stakeholders, some suggest that external pressure may have influenced the decision.
When bills are passed, sometimes those bills are passed in a hurry. Sometimes you not even hear that those bills have ever come out at all. And when you finally hear that, oh, it's done first and second reading and all that, the next thing you hear, somebody somewhere would have said, oh, that bill cannot go through. They will now find a way to either rescind their decision or to step it down.
There are mixed reactions as to whether the broad range of amendments truly reflects the aspirations of Nigerians.
What we have in Nigeria today is the government of the oligarchy, by the oligarchy, and for the oligarchy. We no longer have, what you and I would probably describe as democracy, which is the government of the people, by the people and for the people.
Gender equity issue, adequate representation of women, issue of citizenship for spouses of, Nigerian women, and the inheritance, a lot of things reflect,
With 110 bills now at the committee stage, policy analysts fear that many may face significant hurdles that could prevent them from advancing to the next phase of the constitutional review process.
The existential hurdle has been that the state assemblies will not give to thought on critical things that seem to alter the structure of governance or relationship.
As the House of Representatives prepares to consider more amendments to the nation's constitution, observers say the event of this week could shape future debates on legislative independence, executive influence, and the transparency of Nigeria's lawmaking process. In Abuja for News Central, Idong Joseph.
And now moving to Edo State. The killing of 16 northern travelers in Uromi, Edo State, set ablaze by a mob, has sparked nationwide outrage, with President Bola Tinubu and the Edo Governor Monday Okpebholo ordering a full investigation. The victims, identified as hunters traveling for Sala, were reportedly stopped by local security operatives accused of being kidnappers after Dane guns were found in their vehicle. Now here's what you need to know. The mob attack happened on March 28, 2025 in Uromi, Edo State, where the traveling northerners were suspected of being kidnappers and then set ablaze with tires. Authorities have arrested about 14 suspects in connection with the killings and are conducting an ongoing investigation to apprehend others involved. The Edo State Governor Monday Okpebholo condemned the act, suspending the local authority chief and banning unauthorized vigilante groups to prevent future incidents. We're now joined this morning by legal practitioner Liberos Oshoma. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
good morning.
It's just a sad...
Just that you need to add, that Uromi is very close to my village. It's just about 20 minutes from my village.
Oh, wow. Where are you from?
I'm from Anegbete.
Oh, Anegbete. You definitely know of Anegbete. And it's a sad conversation to start our Monday with. But we can't deny the fact that while some people are celebrating Eid, there are others who should have been celebrating Eid, whose lives were unfortunately cut short. But let's talk about, before we get into the story proper, I saw a video online of somebody complaining about killings in Uromi and complaining about how they had been attacked. Since it's 20 minutes from your village, I don't know if you have an idea about the history of security or lack of it in Uromi.
Yeah, thank you. First and foremost, my condolence to, the families that have lost them, these loved ones. Secondly, and to the families that have lost people one way or the other in Edo State and Nigeria. This also for me should, create an opportunity for us to start that conversation again. We have abandoned it, we have left it, we just treat it in isolation. The position of insecurity in Nigeria is a menace that we run away from until issues like this happen. And then we begin to, look for how to deal with it in isolation and then leave the bigger problems. If you as a journalist, you would have been inundated with the border insecurity happening around Edo State over time now. And before the election, there was the previous administration had, what you call a local vigilante group, which was suspended by the IG just before the election. And so when this governor came, the anti-kidnapping law was amended, and then the Edo State Security Corps was created with a commander. And so you had some vigilante groups who, because of the insecurity, so you had communities who had empowered their own vigilante group.
Self-help.
Self-help. Distinct from the government vigilante group, because this government is barely 4 months, and so they are trying to, in finding their feet, you can give it to them. Edo State, the Metropolitan is relatively very safe now, unlike the court activities that we had at insecurity, kidnapping, to the extent that the former PDP state chairman was kidnapped, right on his way, out of government house after a meeting, and it was so bad. You remember how she had always been in the news for insecurity. Uromi, this same Uromi, 2024, last year, armed robbers attacked Uromi, robbed banks, even a soldier was killed, and so it's always been. But recently, the metropolis had been relatively safe, but the insecurity had been around the borders, and so communities around the borders like Okpebholo, Uromi. Okpebholo is in the north. It borders Kokene and Edo. That's Kogi and Edo. And then you have other communities, Lankpes, Igara, Ibilo, from Ondo, Aziz. And then you have Benin, or Okada or Fosu, from same Ondo, Aziz. So the western side of it had been relatively, calm and peaceful. The north and the south, which is Uromi now, had been a hotbed for kidnappers, especially that Benin Auchi Road, the forest had, been, a very dangerous area. So this is the challenges that they are dealing with, that the communities are dealing with, that the state is dealing with. And then now this happened. And from the stories, the allegation that these persons were traveling and that the vigilante got tips that some persons were traveling with guns. And so when they stopped them, they accosted them, and then in the heat of argument, one of the vigilante members stabbed one of the travelers stabbed a member of the vigilante. And so whatever that now led to whatever happened. But I would say that the killing is not commensurate to the stab, so we should condemn that you cannot, even though provocation is a defense in law, but you cannot compare killing and a stab.
Especially with the gruesome with
yes,
that killing.
with which. But then the question also now remains that we agree that police are empowered to license, light arms. But this licensing of arms, even for hunting, what's the parameters, what's radius can you carry that arm? If your arm is licensed in...
the geographical...
Yes. If your arm is licensed in Edo State, for example, in Uromi, can you take it to Benin? The answer is no. So if you have a licensed firearm, light gun from Kano, can you take it to go hunt in Port Harcourt? And that's why I say that the question, the issues, the discussion. So what I think the federal government can do, let's use this to kickstart a conversation on the state of emergency, on insecurity in Nigeria as a whole, using this as a case study. And then, people now, a lot of people are angry. Some persons in the north are asking questions. Oh, look, this should not be allowed to go unpunished. Those in the south are saying, look, this had happened, the president had ordered, a manhunt for the killers. But it is not just enough to order a manhunt for the killers. There's also a need to actually conduct a forensic investigation as to why were these people carrying arms and where were they coming from. Do you hunt in Port Harcourt? Port Harcourt is known for fishing, and then the other cases of killings and kidnappings that had happened that were unresolved. Some persons, talked about the case of Deborah in the north, and no arrest was made till date, and the matter just died. Some persons, you remember recently, 2023, 2024 was a challenging time for the Catholic Church in Auchi, to the extent that the bishop led a protest over kidnapping in that area. Reverend fathers were kidnapped and killed. And, so these are questions.
So we understand the background, and thank you for laying that background so people understand what's been going on in that area for quite some time. Now, let's look at the government's response, both from the federal and the state level. I mean, is it a little bit too little or too late to kickstart this response? Typical response: we condemn this, we'll set up a high panel to investigate this, and then we move on until the next incident. How do we draw the line and say, look, it stops here? Because loss of life is very tragic, one loss of life, and then to have 16, and you also mentioned the background that it didn't just happen in Edo State. We've also seen cases of jungle justice in the past. And the police response time, I mean, it takes some time to kill those numbers of people. Why? Where were they?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me start from the state vigilante, the local vigilante that are illegal, as pronounced by the state government, and the reason for these vigilantes, and then police. I'll start from the last. Policing in Nigeria, of 300 and something thousand policemen, I don't think we have up to 80-something thousand policing you and I. About 200 and something thousand are policing politically exposed people, rich men, MDs, Yahoo boys that can afford it. It's a notorious fact. Go to National Assembly today, you see the number of policemen, or just go to a high-profile burial and see the number of policemen that will escort dignitaries to that event. And then, And that's the reason, because there's a shortfall in the number of policing. So people now have to resort to self-help. Creating, in every community, if you go to your community now, you'll be shocked that if you attend your village meetings, you'll be shocked that there is a vote contribution meant to protect the community, to empower local vigilantes, not known to the states. In those communities, everybody is doing it now because of these challenges. It was never so. And then now, you have a state vigilante corps with command and control structure. If this local
similar
vigilante...
to Amotekun,
yes, similar to Amotekun. So what, with this, that's why I said, it's a whole big conversation that we should start. What the South states should do or can do now is to find a way to come together and create that kind of security network similar to Amotekun, recognized. You remember even when Amotekun was created, that battle of should they bear arms, should they not bear arms, and yet they want to fight people who are bearing arms. And so you need to have that conversation. So they had command and control structure. So if these vigilantes were part of the state's security corps, probably they would have called the sector commander, who would now maybe probably radio Benin to ask for backup and then move everybody to their station for interrogation. And that interrogation would have revealed a whole lot, maybe. And then you profile them and also probably take their biometrics.
I mean, even the state that has a right to take lives, it goes through
a process, yes. But because, and that's why I like the fact that the government immediately responded. It happened on Thursday. By Friday morning, the governor and his entire team has visited the place. So I would say, I would sit down here and condemn them and say, no, kudos to them. But also, that's why I told you, it's a whole lot of conversation. How much can a governor do when he does not control the police? All they have is their local vigilante.
Chief Security Officer in
name. So this is where the challenge is, really. So now we are creating states are creating local vigilante, and yet we don't want to discuss state policing. But because whether you like it or not, state vigilantes are indirect state policing. Right. So whether you like it or not. So all of these are issues we now need to. So, but also the statement is like, oh, go fish out the perpetrators, make sure they are brought to book. It's as fantastic as such statements are. We need to take it a notch further. Why is it a recurring decimal in Nigeria?
Exactly what I was going to ask. That was going to be my next question. Because at the end of the day, we can't talk about the fact that, or we can't ignore the fact that we've had a challenge in some scenarios with mobbing, people who will just gather, jungle justice, mob people. You mentioned Deborah Samuel. Deborah happened in 2012. There's David Imo that was mobbed in Lekki for 100 naira.
Alufo
was 2012. It's Deborah that was 2022. We made a lot of noise about these things. But why do we still find that people can lynch people, mob them, kill them, and it feels like nothing will happen?
Yeah, we say the windmill of justice grinds slowly but surely. But we forget that justice delayed is justice denied. So when a people don't have a sense of justice, they take the laws into their hands. But when there is justice, you cannot talk about justice without talking about equality. When it happens here, we romanticize it and then just window dress it. But when it happens in this other place, there's swift response, there's action, fire for fire, look for the killers. So people are going to sit down and watch this thing. They say, how do you put it now? I say justice delayed is a mob prepared. Because at the end of the day, people are going to look at the issues and say, okay, when it happens to us, nobody comes to our rescue. So we're going to take the laws into our hands. That's why I would also call on government to ensure that irrespective of who is involved, irrespective of the person, irrespective of where it is happening from, the response should be the same measures. And so that's when the people have a sense of justice, a sense of equality, they are going to feel, oh yes, don't worry, government will take care of this. We trust that something will be done. And just the same way the governor has responded on this one, also we want to see that, wherever it happens, be it in the north, be it in the south, let government and governors in these places respond swiftly. And then, lastly on this issue, the government in it. I have also listened to some persons issuing ultimatum to the president, and you know, these things won't solve these problems. These are not the people saying, oh look, you must do this otherwise in the north, and then people are already reading tribes into this tent.
Yeah, there's ethnic coloration.
Yes, ethnic coloration.
And religious coloration as well.
And typically it is the Easterner, you know, when you have these issues. I saw some posts, oh, maybe it is the Igbos in Uromi. I asked myself, where's our humanity? You know, people have died.
Tragic.
We feel bad that this thing has happened. No matter the excuse, it is not enough to take another life. But also, we also cannot shy away from the fact that we have a big challenge of insecurity in our hands. We also have a problem of education. How do we deal with it? How do we ensure that our people are educated and they are empowered so that tomorrow nobody would, you know, feel the need to even take up arms against another person, or to say, oh, look, I want to protect myself, because you know that the state will always respond. But when the state, federal government in this case, for example, you know, is foot dragging, we talk about police. If the police, we had enough policemen, do you think that we'll be discussing vigilante?
And that brings me to this question. People often resort to jungle justice because they don't even trust the police. I mean, if the police is there in the first place, it's one issue. Another is the trust deficit. They don't trust the police because many times they've seen robbers and people that are wanted get released after a few times. So they'll rather take justice into their hands, which is wrong. Where do we begin to fix the trust, and how do we deal with this issue of jungle justice holistically? And what happened to you mentioned humanity. Why is it easy for someone that just set out to go to work in the morning and then they're mobbing people regardless of their crime? Why is it easy for you to participate, an ordinary person on the face of it, in ending another man's life?
Yeah, because before the program I was talking about reorientation and this colonial mentality of segregation. You know, I am bigger than yours. Mine is better than yours. I pass my neighbor. You know, so that's the mentality that we all have. And so when you now couple with, you know, delayed justice and then impunity on some part, I saw some videos where headsmen were uprooting people's cassava to feed to their cows. Do you know that sometimes if that happens to your farm, it might even kill you? So we also need to discuss the issue of ranching. That's somebody's business. One is cassava farm, is my business. You are ranching, is both is agriculture and farming. So why is one free to destroy mine, and then there are no consequences?
Back to the question of the police.
No, that's what I'm getting to. I'm just laying a foundation.
Oh, okay.
So why is one free to destroy mine and there are no consequences? Because of lack of consequences. Impunity. People now completely lost faith in the system. And coupled with the foundation I laid for you, I said, what's the number of policemen? When Uromi was attacked, a police station was attacked in Auchi. A police station was attacked by armed robbers, bombed down. What was the response? 3 banks were attacked simultaneously on that same day. What was the response? In Uromi too, a bank was attacked. What was the response from the police? So if these things happen and there is no response, because the police also are undermanned, so the people will look at themselves, how do we beef up security in this environment so that we can go to bed with our eyes closed? In my community, we've had to fight a tribal war. Till date, there are still youth leaders and boys who are empowered by the community to provide security. Otherwise, nobody will come home.
I mean, it's even unfortunate that in some communities there have been reports of them even paying these bandits to be able to...
So, in some of these cases, there are no police.
All right.
There are no police in some of these areas. So when go to the area command in Uromi, for example, what's the number of policemen on ground?
All right.
And then the few ones you have are busy arresting Okada riders and looking for Yahoo boys.
So there's definitely a flaw there.
There's a flaw. So
there's a conversation that needs to be had about community policing. Yeah. But I do want to go back to something you had mentioned earlier about reorientation, that there's a reorientation that needs to happen, which is what your response to his question was. And in terms of that reorientation, let's start here. What is the legal implication for people who participate in mob killings? So you see something like that happening, you participate in a mob killing, even though your answer is, oh, you suspected that the person is a kidnapper, you saw Dane guns with them. What is the legal implication for participating in a mob killing? And what is the legal implication of being, you know, a suspect, a kidnapped suspect or a kidnapper?
Before I go into the legal implication, we all know the penalty for murder is death. Not even, you know, some as brazen as that, you know. And so the penalty is death. But also, the issues here are the fact that when we begin to talk about this mob killing, there's need for, I like the fact that the swift response and de-escalation of the matter. People should also be aware that when you begin to threaten people also, that, oh, because this has happened, and the state or the federal government has said, look, we're going to deal with it, would ensure that justice is served. And justice being served is that these people will be arrested and tried in a court of competent jurisdiction. And then government now takes steps to ensure that, you know, there are such consequences, there's no reoccurrence. But when you also now begin to make inciting statements and threaten others, what you also do is an offense also. Those are offenses also. And that you can be arrested for conduct likely to breach public peace, and for threat to life, and, you know, insurgency. So these are issues that people should understand, that all of these are offenses, and some even carry life imprisonment.
Just to mention, I mean, in addition to that, Sanusi has condemned people who potentially want to, you know, carry out reprisal attacks. CFN has spoken against it, saying that they condemn it.
That's what
do you fear that there might be reprisal attacks?
No, because the way the states and the federal government and the leaders, some, you know, notable leaders have handled the matter, I'm happy that, you know, they are de-escalating it.
But you can't assume that everybody is
No. See, let me tell you. So, but also, our personal security should be our individual thing, and so people should, you know, be very vigilant out there. And then government at this stage, because we say there are no police to police us, we should also understand when you have, you know, such an incident, we shouldn't just limit it to the north and the south, or the north and Uromi, or Edo State and Kano. There are people who might feel emboldened to do the same thing if something is not done, if justice is not meted out. I will not sit down here and say because in Deborah's case, people were not arrested, and so in this case, people shouldn't be arrested. No, because if you do that, you will embolden some other persons tomorrow who would sit down and say, yes, they can even, you know, just carry out the act, and then, it becomes a free-for-all. So that's why I like the fact that, you know, everybody's condemning it, and the whole, a lot of both North and South are speaking with one voice on the matter. But it shouldn't end there with just condemnation. No, the opportunity had also presented himself now for the state to actually reorganize and restructure the security architecture, especially for the vigilante. And then the federal government should use this, if you want to call it a reconciliation or what do you call it now, a discussion, a national conference on insecurity, call it whatever you want to call it, but I think we talk too much. Now there are so many blueprints. There are so many blueprints on how we can actually decentralize. President Tinubu, when he was in opposition, some of their campaigns were, we need to decentralize security, we need to decentralize governance. So this is one way of decentralizing. That was why they created LASMA, and you find out that LASMA is even more effective than the federal agencies for managing traffic. In some cases, you hear road safety calling on LASMA to come to their rescue because they are on ground. You know, so in the same way, let the state use this as an opportunity to retool and restructure its security core, and let the federal government use this to have an extensive and robust discussion on declaring a state of emergency on insecurity in Nigeria, and then find lasting ways to solving it.
See that finding lasting ways, I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, if we if we discuss it at the local level,
on the issue, because we might move on to the next big discussion in the news cycle.
It's not something we should just discuss at the national level. we should discuss it at the local levels. Let it be a discussions from the local government. How do we ensure, every local government, how do we ensure that the communities are protected? And so when we have all of that, the people at the local government, because insecurity is local, the people at the local government level will be the one to come and tell you their challenges and how they feel it can be solved. And so once you do that, you would have taken, you know, a huge leap. And then lastly, the River Niger and River Benue. There's need for us to dredge those rivers. During Goodluck Jonathan's time, money was budgeted and it was whacked. If you do not dredge the River Niger and River Benue, any little rain or water, the rivers will overflow their banks, and people will chase people out of their farms. And once people are out of their farms and you stay for a few months and you can't feed, some will take to insecurity. Some become overnight vigilantes. So some of these persons are farmers. Some of them, their forests have been overflooded also. So there's need for us to look at some of these, you know, solutions.
We're not just get into the rainy season. So
exactly. So I think, and then this movement of cows from all the way from the north to come graze, that will also empower, you know, opportunities for ranching.
It was a conversation that was had in the last administration, but I don't know how much light it saw.
The last administration did not have the conversation. What they did was trying to force, you know, what do you call it? No, they were trying to force, what did they even call that bill? You know, creating grazing routes.
Yes.
They were trying to force grazing routes on people. And grazing routes, those ones that you created before, are now people's farmlands and home and them ancestral farmland. So still going back to 1963 to say you want to create a part in my community. Yes. In 2024, 2023.
So that's
a part in my community. It's not an option.
Okay, in 30 seconds, is there an option for redress for the families of the victims?
Yes, certainly. I first and foremost, I think the state government should visit, extend the hand of fellowship, visit Kano. And then the families also, the Kano state government now would know how to deal with, you know, the families of these people. That way, you would have taken care, because some of these people are breadwinners, whether you like it or not, you know, you would have also, it shows sympathy from the states. And the federal government can set up a team to also visit their families. But don't ask me how many people have federal government visited, because it's always the case. That's why I talk about equality and justice. Equality and justice.
And should be your guiding principles all the time.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Libero Soshoma, as always,
My
for
pleasure.
talking to us on Breakfast Central.
Thank you for joining us. Right. el-Fitr commemorates the end of Ramadan, the Islamic holy month of fasting. It's a significant celebration in the Islamic calendar, symbolizing the breaking of the fast and the renewal of spiritual growth. Meanwhile, Muslims in Asaba, the Delta State capital, gathered at the Eid prayer grounds to seek forgiveness and express gratitude to Allah for a successful Ramadan. News Central correspondent Austin Azu, who covered the spiritual exercise, reports that the faithful share insights on its significance, the lessons learned during Ramadan, and their wishes for Nigeria. Let's take a listen.
And this thing teaches you a lot of things within this last month. It teach you to be patient, to be tolerant, and to be dedicated to Almighty God, to fear God, and to support the needy.
Being a Muslim or Christian, anywhere you find yourself, you share that love that you feel that is very common. It matters to share to one another. And I'm saying happy Salah to everyone.
We need peace for this country. We all we're all one. Muslims and Christians, we are all one. We are from Adam and Eve.
Our leaders should come together, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their tribe. We must come together and join hands to work for our dear country. We don't have any country than Nigeria.
And congratulations once again to all our Muslim faithfuls on the conclusion of the Ramadan fast and the celebration of Eid. Let's take you through a recap of the conversations we've had this morning and then share with you what's coming up next. This morning on Breakfast Central, police arrest 14 suspects over 16 hunters' deaths in Edo State. We're joined by Libero Soshoma to have an extensive conversation of that. And we did bring you a report on the House of Reps having passed 110 bills in 72 hours. Muslims call for national unity and tolerance during el-Fitr. But we have more conversations. Let's share with you what's coming up next.
Coming up next on Breakfast Central this morning, ex-Rivers Head of service accuses Fubara an assembly of bombing assembly and theft. And we'll bring you the newspaper front pages. Remember, you can call in and share with us. And on Which Way Nigeria this morning, we'll be looking at jungle justice in Uromi. You stay with us. Breakfast Central continues shortly.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time for us to punch you with the punch and other papers and see what the front pages are saying. We're joined by public affairs analyst Dotun Ojon. Good morning.
Good morning and happy holiday.
Good morning, Dotun.
Happy which holiday? Say what? He's really thrilled.
Yes. I wasn't expecting to see all of the ties and all of that.
You really got
I wanted something.
The show goes on, and you're part of us.
So happy holidays. All right, let's start off with the Punch newspaper and talk about the big stories. Of course, the biggest story this morning is the lynched travelers. CDS squad goes after killers as Okpebholo consults governors. 14 arrested as governor suspend security corps boss, illegal vigilante groups. Obasa pursues suit against Miranda. We are still on this one. Lawmakers, despite Tinubu's intervention. NCDC heightened surveillance as Lassa fever kills 118. Oyo wage bill now 24 billion naira monthly, says Governor Seyi Makinde. Rivers, federal government awaits service of PDP governor's suit. Petrol price to rise more as naira for crude talks war boon.
Should not rise more, please.
Please now, who did we offend?
I can't remember the last time I had fill up in a gas station.
Gas station fill up. Honestly, it's even advisable to fill up if you can, because you never know when there'll be when there'll be scarcity or a price increase. Fill up is what helped me one day. The day I finished filling up, the next day, price increase and scarcity at the same time. World Bank to approve Nigeria's $632 million loan request today. And Edo Governor Tinubu National Assembly governors preach peace, police heighten security nationwide. That's all on the Punch. Let's go to the Daily Independent.
Now, on the front page of the Daily Independent, the headline says, inefficiencies, liquidity strain hold down power sector growth. I mean, I believe it's beyond this, because what has been holding it down since I was a kid, it's almost like rocket science to have 24 hours electricity. Enough of excuses. Nigerians just want to see power. Rivers emergency rule, court summons Tinubu, Akpabio, others, Abbas and others. Serap asked Akpabio, Abbas to withdraw bill to jail Nigerians for not voting. That's very outrageous. I mean, some of us are journalists and we have to cover, we're on election beats. Some have to be in the studio. Doesn't mean you're going to come and arrest me if I'm not able to physically vote. Olive, I have to protect you on that day.
Well, the good
I will hold down the show. You go and vote.
I don't mind going down to vote. I'll be reporting live from the studio, then I'll come and do the second half and you then go and vote.
That's fine. You're a wise woman. Air passengers missing baggage hits 47,923 in 12 months in Nigeria. It's one thing you really don't want to go through. It's and I wonder what the cause is. We need to do something about this urgently. Police summon Sanusi II's councillor over el-Fitr violence in Kano. Sad news there. Tinubu charges Nigerians on love charity for vulnerable citizens. Heritage Bank, NDIC to commence payment of uninsured balances. At Nigeria Economic Summit Group unveils new roadmap to Nigeria to drive Nigeria's economic development. Lassa fever claims 118 lives in 3 months, says the NCDC. And Uromi killings, Edo government sacks State Security Corps boss. That's all on the Daily Independent.
All right, the Daily Times says 109 new Nigerian newspaper workers die awaiting payments from northern state governors. Really sad. Northern Can condemns Uromi killings, urges calmness as governor sacks commander. Without wise reports, no genuine electoral reforms, Okechukwu says. Choice of PDP running mates strategic not popularity contest, Atiku tells Wiki. We're still on this one too. Niger Republic quits Lake Chad military force. And at the top, we can see reps recover over $14 million from oil companies as recoveries now exceed 50 billion naira. Senate's rejection of Professor Nwosu's immortalization an appeal to Mr. President on the front page, the commentary there. Maybe we should start with that one. Your thoughts on the move to immortalize Professor Onwosu. You know, they talked about the role that he played in what is considered Nigeria's freest and fairest election yet. And you could see how it became a subject of debate in the House. The Deputy Speaker saying that some people some people are in support, others think that his role in the elections was controversial. But what are your thoughts about this?
Extremely controversial. But when war broke out between Ukraine and Russia the other time, a lot of people were advising the president of Ukraine on what to do. And I saw my timeline and I was telling my friend that these are the people who run to their parlor whenever they have issues with their wives. Now they are advising the president on what to do with law. And it's an extension of that this morning, because a lot of people who could not stay in the face of a military general will now advise a man on what to do when he's leading an election that is monitored by a military regime. It's neither here nor there. The argument for him has been the fact that the courage that his ability to be able to organize election, credible election, as the case was in 1993. But of course, people thought that that same courage should have been extended to announcing the result at the end of the day, even at the expense of whatever it is that was at stake at that point. So it's a conversation that is neither here nor there. But I think the best way to immortalize anybody, whether the man who died in the course of election, my father who had an accident during election, and all of these people, is to actually procure good government for Nigerians. Anything outside of this, we can name
a thriving democracy.
A thriving democracy. We can name anything after anybody. If at the end of the day, we do not give the dividend of democracy to the Nigerian people. I listened to the president talk about having pity for the vulnerable. Unfortunately, when you're talking about the level of vulnerability now, you're talking about 90% of your population. They're vulnerable. I'm also vulnerable. People can no longer feed as a result of the fact that, oh, you said you were trying to fix things. So the level of vulnerability has become very high now that people have begun to doubt the efficacy of democracy. Because the essence of democracy, like I've said repeatedly, is to give to the people what they cannot give to themselves. Now the people are so helpless because they cannot give themselves food. They cannot give themselves shelter. So the best way to immortalize anybody is for everybody in the corridor of power today to come together and vow that they are going to deliver the dividend of democracy. You may name a university after my father. It's going to mean nothing to my generation if at the end of the day there's no food on their table. So our conversation should move from individualism to communism. Our conversation should move from self to society. And we must get to a point where we must all agree that the best way to immortalize anybody is to actually procure good governance.
But you know, if we were to go by that argument, then people would say, why did we have to declare the MKO Abiola Day? Why did we have to push for that? Why did we have to celebrate him in the way that we did, if we were to go by this argument?
Okay, so I think it's about the person of MKO Abiola and the belief of the community in his personality. A lot of people today, and whether he will have been a fantastic president should be a conversation for the academics. But again, we had somebody who was able to unify Nigerian people. Let me tell you that the major challenge we have with leadership in Nigeria today is what I call the 3 R's: resentment, religion, and whatever it is. But we had a unifier. In the last election was almost dividing everybody. We had interest here and there. But MK Abiola came as a unifier, and a lot of people from across board voted without considering whether he was a Muslim, voted without considering whether he was a Yoruba man, voted without considering whether he was of SDP. In fact, we had people in other political parties, when Abiola became the candidate of SDP, who voted for him. And there were records of that. So I think we should have this conversation forward thinking.
He was also jailed.
Yes, forward thinking in a way that we let everybody know that conversation around, somebody is Lord, somebody is God, should not be. There should be a conversation around how democracy should better serve the people. And that in any way does not take away the input of everyone. We have a lot of people who fought for democracy. In fact, the sitting president today is one of the voices that fought for democracy. Omoyele Sowore, my cousin, has been a fantastic fight in the cause of procuring democracy for the people. So we have a whole lot of people. How can we immortalize everybody? The best way to do that is to procure good governance for the people of Nigeria, in my opinion.
Well,
we have to also immortalize you for your contribution on Breakfast Central.
Thank you, but I do think that this is a very, sensitive conversation.
It is
a very touchy subject for a number of people because there have also been the ethnic colorations that have been attached to this and saying that if you say that MK Abiola should be immortalized and rightfully so because of the role he played in the elections, then how about the person who had the guts to go ahead with the elections? Because if he didn't, these elections wouldn't have happened, and then we wouldn't have been able to celebrate MK. So the arguments here and there, but we'll come back to touch on more stories after this break.
You're welcome back to Breakfast Central here on News Central Television, and we're currently looking at the front pages of the newspapers. Remember, you could call in and share your thoughts with us. Still have in the studio Mr. Dotun or John. Now, we were talking about elections and immortalizing or not immortalizing Mr. Henry Nwosu, the late Professor Henry Nwosu. Now, still on election matters, I saw this headline on the Daily Independent and I just thought, how is this possible? Serap asks Akpabio Abbas to withdraw bill to jail Nigerians for not voting. What do you make of this?
Let's even give details of that bill, please, before we go ahead. So the bill is titled, I saw the name just now. The bill is titled A Bill for an Act to Amend the Electoral Act 2022 to make it mandatory for all Nigerians of majority age to vote in all national and state elections and for related matters. And then its provision is that they would impose a 6-month jail term or a fine of 100,000 naira or both on eligible Nigerians who fail to vote in national and state elections.
Okay. So it's a bit cumbersome, but I'll try to.
There's a voter apathy problem.
Yeah. So now in a community where you have 15%, 10% of your populace determine who rules you, it's not a healthy community. Unfortunately, it's also an indictment. They're trying to pass an indictment because if you had 250 million people in a community, and at the end of the day, somebody becomes your president with 10 million votes, with 12 million votes. In the first place, that person he should have been the president of his Agbole's family house, not the president of Nigeria in the first instance.
It's not a broad reflection.
Yes, not a broad. But before laws like this would be communicated in the National Assembly, there will have been a framework that allows Nigeria, that gives the Nigerian the ability to vote wherever they may be. For example, you are a journalist. Maybe you are covering, there must be something like electronic vote or early vote. Or early vote that will ease the process. Now people go out as early as, as early as 7 a.m. By the time you get to the polling unit sometimes, getting beavers to accredit you and all of that is always very cumbersome. Where I voted in the last election, in fact, it was because I had run for election. I was almost the #1 person in that polling unit. I saw the suffering of people. People had to come, queue as early as possible, and they waited in the sun. So before you make a law that mandates people, there must be something that softens, that creates an opportunity for the people to have the ability to make it easy for the people to vote. I think the intent is that they are disappointed at the product of our election. What do I mean by product of our election? Our election over the years has shown that the worst of us may continue to rule the rest of us if something urgent is not done. But in the absence of strategic thinking as to provide a solution of something that can be done, they think that, once we mandate everybody to vote, no. So in every same I'm trying to make this quick point. In every same community, in where democracy thrives across the world, there's no place in the world where people are coerced to vote.
Thank you for highlighting that.
It's a product of education. You continue to enlighten the people, you continue to educate them. And our level of illiteracy, unfortunately, certification cannot cure it. If a truck full of petrol falls today at this particular place, people will still rush there to scoop fuel. It shows that we need constant engagement, engaging the heart of our people, telling them the importance of election. And this is not going to happen overnight, but coercing people may not actually bring the result. But I understand the thinking behind the bill.
I really like that you mentioned that there's nowhere where voting is, not voting is criminalized, because saying that someone has a right to vote should imply that they also have a right to not vote.
Yeah.
Especially in a country where our voting systems have been under scrutiny, the results of our elections have been judged unfairly by Nigerians. The quality of our elections, have been judged to be unfair. We're just talking about the freest and the fairest election so far in Nigeria.
1993.
Look at how long ago it happened, and here to in 2025, and we can't say that our election processes can be deemed to be free, fair, credible, without any form of bias, without any form of chaos. So there are other areas that maybe should be considered. The argument for Serap, for example, is that the priority should be placed on certain reforms, such as removing of immunity clauses for the president, the vice president, and the likes. But we'll come back to talk about that. Let's quickly hear from Clement calling from Lagos State. Good morning, Clement.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Clemens. Please go ahead with your comments.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We cannot hear you, Clemens. All right.
Okay, so the best way to coerce the people, quote unquote now, positive coercion, is to make them believe in the system that you want them to participate in. As long as your people do not believe in your election process, there's no magic. You are still going to make the law, it's not going to work. I always tell people, we do not need new law to drive anything in Nigeria. We only need a change of logic. What we need is for the people to believe that if I vote truly, my vote is going to count. And once they have this, then they begin to identify that they've been able to, as a result of their vote, they've been able to maybe vote for credible people in election, and they want to participate in the next election. But as long as they think, and it's a subject of perception. I keep hammering on the issue of perception. Right. As long as the people think that their elections are not working for them, they are not going to participate. There's nothing.
So how do we fix this? And how do they restore confidence and trust in INEC?
But before you respond to that, let's take a call from Wari. Festus is calling this morning. Good morning, Festus. Please go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations once again for telling us very important issue affecting us as citizens and Nigerians.
Thank you very much.
The leadership in Nigeria has made us to believe that there are others that are true citizens of this country, that others are investors of having us. The first and foremost, the government has failed to sensitize the people with the true meaning of what we should know. It only shows that no joy, that all the essence of voting that people in this country. You have to ask me how many percent of Nigerians don't know their rights. The people don't want you to know, so they keep to sit upon them.
Let's check with your audio first.
Sorry, Festus, we will have to let you go because of the quality of your audio. You might try to call us back. Thank you.
Please.
Yeah.
I think I could manage to pick one or two things from what he was saying, even though the audio was really poor, about, the government making us feel like there are two categories of people, sort of the segregation in the citizenry, and I think that it's important to have these conversations. But you had asked him a question and,
Oh, yes, restoring trust in the electoral system and people not just sitting at home on election day watching Premier League or playing football on the empty streets saying, it's a better use of my time than voting because the elections are a foregone conclusion.
Yes, the kind of leadership every community projects determines the involvement of the citizenry. So before you talk about the responsibility of the citizen, you talk about the kind of system that the government runs on. First is the fact that if I believe that the election is going to produce somebody who will have my interests at heart, then I'm going to just be committed to it. So it still boils down to the issue of leadership. Now, in the letters of the alphabet, you have A, B, C to Z. You see RST. It means that the result you obtain in every governance that you do or you participate in is subject to the system that you run. We currently run a fraudulent political system where even the members of the parties do not get to decide who is their candidate at the end of the day.
You think it applies across board?
It applies across board.
Across all political parties.
All political parties. See, you may see that you may think that the greatest evil that we have is the party in power. Go to the small party. Can I quickly tell you a story?
Okay. Before you tell that story, we have Chude. Chude is calling from Lagos. Chude, good morning. Please go ahead with your comment. Good morning,
Chude.
Chude, this is still. Can you hear? The audio is still poor, and I'm hoping it's not from our own end as well. Please call back. But I know he wanted to speak to the immortalization of Humphrey Nwosu, and I really want to hear.
Maybe you could speak away from your
device,
the mouthpiece.
I'm not quite sure what's happening, but you're going to tell us a story about political parties.
I was going to tell you a story. I had traveled to pick a nomination form of a political party, and the woman leader of the state had called me and said, "Oh, the normal tradition is that when you pick the party form and you come back, we must arrange women to welcome you at the airport and bring you back that you have picked the nomination form." So eventually when I got to Abuja, I couldn't pick the form. And when I returned, I was trying to convince her to say, "Oh, I didn't pick the form, so there's no need for you to mobilize people."
Empty-handed.
She said, "No, that's the tradition." I said, "Okay." Back and forth. I told her I mobilized the people. She mobilized the people to come welcome me. And after, when they were going, she came to me and said, "We have to demobilize them." That means that we have to give them money to return.
It's true.
So I was like,
who mobilizes?
Yes, mobilize. So I was like, no, I didn't get the form in the first place. So there's no point. So when the pressure was much, I said, "Okay, do you have that amount of money with you?" She said, "Yeah, well, she's going to do it." So she demobilized the people. I have not got to my hotel when she called me. I said, "Hey, Oga, the money I sent to you, when are you going to pay me back?" I'm like, "You don't, just calm down a bit." But here's the story. By the time we came back the next day to have meeting with the women, I just took an initiative to speak to the women. I asked them, "Did the woman leader give you money yesterday?" When they mentioned the amount of money, the ridiculous amount of money this woman gave them, I almost cried for Nigeria that day. And it's easy for me to say, "Oh, the party in power is the most devilish." Our election, our political parties are populated by a lot of people that are not supposed to determine our destiny direction. And that's why you and I, who are exposed, must participate in the process of election in Nigeria.
I mean, imagine the values they instill or the children pick up from. So the family is really important.
Okay, we'll come back. I mean, that's an interesting story. I have a lot of thoughts there. Yeah. But let's hear from Comrade Igwe calling from Ebonyi. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, all right. Whilst they're trying to connect him, is there a possibility that you could have refused the mobilization and the demobilization? I don't know if you would have been able to progress.
That is too much of a chance.
The thing is that the way we tailor our political system, and sometimes it's very easy, if you had not participated in the process, you can come on television and demonize everybody. The process is like a criminal hole. Only a few people will pass through the hole and remain sane at the end of the hole. Because the way the political system is built, President Tinubu today, except if he wants to be, maybe forget, will tell you the amount of money he spent to be president, you will pity him. Our entire system, from politics, from primary election, you heard when Bashir Dele Momodu said that at a point somebody was giving up to $30,000 to each.
So what does this say about intention, your pure heart, your will to work? You're driven to make a change.
Which pure heart?
What happens to all of that?
So let's hear from Comrade Igwe. We've finally been able to patch to him. Then we can come back and talk about your pure heart and motivation to work. Comrade Igwe, good morning. Please go ahead with your comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The modernization of the state. I think the man should be modernized. Everyone says IPC, no IPC will not be modernized one day. The problem with the system of this country is that everything is upside down. Just like my brother said, passing a bill of compulsory voting. Let's just look at the system like I said, where the leaders who are supposed to be teaching us the way forward are the ones spoiling the system. And they're untouchable. They still come back to the village to ask us to vote for them, and we'll vote again. Maybe most times they will come with their money. And if you reject the money, others will collect the money and vote. And when once people have started saving their vote, even though you try to bring a law that will force people to vote, no problem, they will be voting. There needs thinking. Africa has made a remarkable history in this country, not even in the country, in the whole world. After Abiola, I've never seen a kind of massive voting except the recent one of P2B. But I want to let you people know that the system is down. Check about police. You know that in Nigerian police today, the policemen out there don't get their entitlement from the from IG or from whoever controls that. And you see them today going out with a hill of being donated by the governor, and they still be the ones fueling the vehicle to do security work by collecting from people on the roads. So where will you start? NSA today was supposed to be relying on will arrest people and keep them in army cell for getting to 6 months now. The one that happened in Ebonyi, and nobody is doing anything about it. No investigation, no nothing. My family men are out dumped in that army cell today from last year. Nobody have ever said anything about it. And we are talking about the same system where when you vote somebody to be in power, the person will start intimidating you. I think the constitution something should be done about the Nigerian constitution. That is the only thing all these mess can be fixed. We should come together and do something about the constitution. Let the constitution stop hunting poor masses. Let the constitution stop hunting people that does not have rank. We should have an every constitution whereby you can open up and say something and somebody will not come to arrest you for saying the right thing. You know what's going on in Abia now? The governor was saying the other day that he wants to start the process of releasing people from correctional center for speaking out their mind for the other past government. Why should such people be detained because they are opening up to say this thing you're doing is not good? And how can one take correction when somebody is not there to talk to you? When somebody is not there to push your illegalities or whatever thing you're doing? So please, the media should try more. I know you people are trying your best. I always follow your program, but you people should extend the time because people have a lot to say. The country is messed up.
We have good news for you in that regard. We are actually listening and we're extending the time of the show.
Okay, that would be nice. So I think I rest my case, please.
Very much, Comrade Igwe, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah, yes. Before Comrade Igwe came on board, we were having a conversation about listen to a politician like Barack Obama. You're inspired. I believe in change. I have the will to. I want to serve my people. Genuine intentions. Yeah. Can you talk us through the process of if you want to participate? Enough of waiting and observing. I really want to take power in my hands and change things from local government level. Let's start from the local government, since it's the closest to the people.
Yeah, so I think the best way is actually to populate our election process with people of integrity. What do I mean? When you have political parties that are populated by people who want true change for the community, you are going to get through. But our political system as it is built now is like a firefighter. What it does is to pour water on the fire of your good ambition and intention.
So can you walk us through the process?
Okay, so it's as simple as you have a community of 300 people. So the best thing, if you have caught the fire of change, the best thing to do is to actually motivate people that are not part of the election process now to be part of it. So when all of them join the political party, it becomes exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible, for manipulators to manipulate. See, the greatest manipulation starts from picking the candidate. That's what I'm saying.
No,
For
but
example,
it's easy to manipulate people that are hungry.
Of course, you cannot solve the problem of hunger, and we must know that the solution to every hungry community lies in hunger. It's going to get to a point where people will become hungry, that they will no longer have interest in food. They'll be hungry for betterment of their children's future. And we are going to get there. The only thing that will take us there is hardship. You know, a philosopher said that when a community becomes hard, it begins to build strong people. People who are going to say no to whatever 2,000 naira that you share on the day of election. We are still going to go. We will get there. We are going to get there. The hardship is getting to a point now where people have generally cut down their vanities. And we are going to get to a point where we will know.
When you say people have cut down on their vanities, which people are you talking about? Are you talking about the political elite?
I'm talking about Nigerian people. Political elites don't get to tighten their belt.
Exactly.
They live in opulence and prosperity, and they only expect the people to tighten their belt. But I think we should not make the people helpless by thinking that the solution to their problem lies entirely in the hand of the political elite. It's going to get to a point where people will know that the only thing they can do is to procure good government for themselves. Let me cite an example of the religious house that I belong to, the church. Now, formally, it is evil for anybody to go into politics. In fact, when I ran for office, when I came back to the church, and it was that bad, when I ran for office and came back to the church leadership did not want me in sensitive position within the church. Why? Because I've gone to dine with the devil in their mindset. Yeah, you understand? But now, churches are now opening the Department of Politics and Government because they know 2020 taught them that bitter lesson. God do it. God is not going to do it. Government is going to make one policy that's going to stop everybody from going to church. So people are becoming wiser. They want to get involved in their government, and you can see it in 2023 election. Nobody will have known that Ashwaju will lose in Lagos, but he lost in Lagos. No amount of pardon could make him win in Lagos. That's what we're talking about. We are getting to that point gradually.
Okay, we are hoping that we get to the point where our elections can be judged free, fair, where people will be confident to go to the polls knowing that what they put in is what they will get out. It's not what I ordered versus what I got.
And people with good heart can also succeed.
Yes, good heart and drive and vision, and you don't have to mobilize and demobilize. So thank you so much, Dr. for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so many conversations to have this morning. We'll go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll be bringing you Which Way Nigeria.
16 men, 16 lives lost in the most horrific way possible. Not after a fair trial, not after evidence was presented. No, they were dragged, beaten, set on fire, and killed in cold blood, not by terrorists, not by kidnappers, but a mob. A crowd that took the law into their own hands and became the executioners without a shred of proof. Their crime, traveling with hunting tools. Their trial, a street filled with angry voices. Their defense, none. Their sentence, death. This is jungle justice, a sickness that has taken deep roots in our society, a practice that robs people of their rights to be heard, their rights to defend themselves, their rights to live. And now, as always, we hear the same reactions from government officials, condemning the act, security agencies investigating, statements filled with words but lacking action. But let's ask ourselves, how many times have we been here before? From the tragic killing of the Alufo in 2012 to the brutal lynching of Deborah Emmanuel in 2022. History keeps repeating itself. Innocent lives are lost. Mobs take justice into their own hands, and yet the cycle continues. How many more innocent people must be killed before something truly changes? Where were the police when this mob gathered? Where was the rule of law when innocent men were being burned alive? This is not justice. This is lawlessness. This is chaos. And if we allow it to continue, no one is safe. Because today it was 16 men in Uromi. Tomorrow it could be someone else. A traveler, a stranger, an innocent person at the wrong place at the wrong time. We must strengthen our justice system, rebuild trust in law enforcement, and hold those responsible for justice, jungle justice accountable. Because if we don't stop this now, the fires of mob violence will continue to burn, consuming not just the accused, but the very fabric of our society. This is not a good morning, Nigerians.
The suspended governor of Rivers State, Governor Siminalayi Fubara, has dismissed allegations by former head of service Judge Nwaeke, calling them false and politically driven. In a statement on X on Saturday, Fubara said that Nwaeke had been coerced into making baseless claims against him. Nwaeke, who resigned sometime last week, accused Fubara of fueling the Rivers State's political crisis. Now, here's what you should know.
Nwaeke accused Governor Fubara of massive financial mismanagement. He alleged Governor Fubara orchestrated the 2023 bombing of the Rivers State House of Assembly with assistance from the Chief of Staff, Edison Ehie, to prevent an impeachment attempt. Nwaeke also claimed that Governor Fubara is working with militants to sabotage oil pipelines and other national assets in Rivers State. Governor Fubara strongly denied all the allegations, calling them false, politically motivated, and an attempt to disrupt the peace process initiated by President Bola Tinubu. Joining us this morning on Breakfast Central to discuss this is the head of ethics and compliance at Rivers State Bureau on Public Procurement and legal practitioner, Dr. Nwaeke Gima. Good morning to you, Dr. Gima, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Hi, good morning.
Now, Dr. Gima, good morning to you. Dr. Gima, how significant are these very weighty allegations?
Actually, Professor Gima.
Okay, Professor Gima, please forgive us for that error. Now, Professor Gima, how significant are the allegations made by Dr. Judge Nwaeke against Governor Siminalayi Fubara, and what could be the motive behind them? The governor has since denied these allegations.
Actually, let me start by saying that I am not a politician. As you rightly introduced me, I am somebody who is a Rivers indigene, who is like every other of the 5 million plus almost Rivers, almost 6 million people residing in Rivers State. We are clamoring for peace. We hope that there will be peace. So I do not know the motives behind any of, not just the present personality you mentioned, but indeed any of the actors in the allegations they make. But I can, as a citizen of the state, talk about the aspects that concern us mainly in the state, which are, when you say something, the legal implications, how it is looked at legally, you know, and what ramifications those seemingly legally implicating statements can put for the state. I can also say that these sort of things have to also deal with the other aspect, daily but very serious aspects of governance, such as procurement. By procurement, we are talking about continuous development of the state expenditures. And also, it also makes me think that this general socio-economic equilibrium of Rivers State is often at stake when this sort of political crisis simmers. So I'm not a politician, I'm not interested in the politics of it per se, but I can put thought to all this, especially also considering the fact that I'm a legal practitioner and I think I have some fairly sound knowledge of the law concerning some of these things. Yeah.
All right, so what exactly, I mean, just to come to, I mean, you say you're not a politician, we completely get that, but there have been some some areas that have been highlighted, some key issues. For example, the governor denying what has been said, his wife coming out to state that her husband had been made to say all of that under duress, the husband coming out to say that he didn't say it under duress. And then Honorable Edo Governor, who's also now granted an interview stating that there's an alternate motive for him to have said, for Mr. George to have said what he said, stating that he wasn't a content person and all that. So how can we make sense, help us make sense of all that has been happening in that regard?
Well, the truth is that River State has been a boiling center for about 2 years now, and it's affecting all of us. If you look at me, I'm looking a bit tired, just from the psychological trauma of having to be talking about these things. But let me say that when you make allegations against somebody, the person has the right of reply, which is what has happened between what Dr. Nwaeke said and, of course, the governors, suspended governor, also replied. But I have to point out that in criminal matters, you are put to the highest test of proof. So we as lawyers advise that if you don't have the total facts concerning the allegations you are making, or if you don't have hard evidence, then don't bother to make it. Because if you make an allegation and you don't have serious evidence, it has a way of hitting the body politic.
When you say this, are you saying this in reference to the governor? Are you saying this in reference to Mr. Nwaeke, who said what he said? Or are you saying this in reference to?
I think in reference to allegations that were made, and even to any other person, any other circumstance. I say, if you don't have evidence, don't make serious allegations. And if you are making very serious allegations, then be ready at any time you are called upon to present those allegations. I think that it's elementary law, and my colleague the bar will agree with me. I want to just point out something. Look at the recent incident of killing of hunting travelers. I mean, hunters who were traveling. It's also because sometimes when people make these allegations, they just make it based on what we call group hysteria, and emotional imbalance that occurs when people just want to be excitable in just blaming people, and finding excuses to make an allegation but they don't have the hard facts. And even when you have such hard facts, you shouldn't put it, in my humble opinion, all the time in the public domain. There are channels, especially the proper channels to pass those information, e.g., if you have them to the security agent. I think we should avoid playing to the gallery when serious issues are involved. My take is that everybody in River State is concerned so that the state doesn't implode. So we all need to be careful. That's it.
Thank you very much, Professor Lekki Gima, Head of Ethics and Compliance at River State Bureau of Public Procurement. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Welcome.
Okay. I guess this is where we draw the curtains on today's Breakfast Central. It's been quite an interesting conversation. Yes. So many areas to look at, and we definitely will be continuing the conversations with you tomorrow. But please do well to follow us on all social media platforms at News Central TV, and keep up the interviews, keep up with our interviews on YouTube. As we close out today's show, we want to give a very special shout out to Salgi Ogbonwa, who turns a year older today. Thank you for all your contributions to Breakfast Central. We celebrate you and wish you the most phenomenal year yet. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. I wished him, I saw him last night, so I wished him a happy birthday. That's amazing. Yeah. All right, we'll be back again tomorrow, same time, and we do have good news. I'm sure that you will get to find out what this good news is, so stick around tomorrow to find out what it is. I am Olive Emodi. And I'm Benga Bora. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.